with the details of the 2016 budget made public after President Buhari eventually signed it into law in May. It has become clear that there are more plans to improve agriculture. These include plans to announce deadline for achieving self-sufficiency in local production of maize, soya, poultry, and livestock.
We intend to, out of the surplus from agriculture, revitalize and expand agro-allied processing, intensify local production and processing of cassava, of cocoa, of cashew, of fruits, of sesame seeds, and so on. This is the area that we see, potential area to increase employment opportunities for our youth, revitalize our processing, and so that we have our youth gainfully employed. In order to do this in agriculture, we need to have land available for that purpose. So we intend to utilize 5,000 hectares of irrigable land in the 12 River Basin Development Authorities and utilize 22 dams for commercial farming activities by prospective investors. Because for many crops, right now we only have one season because of the lack of irrigation. With irrigation, we could do 2 harvests in a year.
The 2016 appropriation for agriculture is 75.80 billion naira, or 1.5% of the total budget. Capital is 46.17 billion, while 29.63 billion is earmarked for recurrent expenditure. Agricultural projects captured in the budget details include construction and rehabilitation of rural roads at the cost of 1.3 billion naira, support for 187,500 farmers across the country will go up 1.3 billion naira too, while extension services will take 939.7 million naira. Development of strategic grazing reserves, 940 million naira. Price stabilization and buyback, as well as price guarantee scheme, 940 million naira. Other budgeted provisions that will impact directly on agriculture include the following water projects: construction of the Hadeja Valley Irrigation Project, supply and installation of pressurized center pivot irrigation system nationwide, rehabilitation of Adani Irrigation Project, African Development Bank assisted rural water supply and sanitation initiatives, construction of embankments for Jare Earth Dam, Kashambila, Adada, Ileife, and Galma Dams, construction of 200 solar motorized boreholes nationwide. This year's appropriation for agriculture is a marked improvement on the 2015 budget in terms of fiscal allocation. Last year, the sector had to make do with a total of 39.1 billion naira, of which 32.2 billion was for personnel and overhead costs. Only 6.9 billion naira was earmarked for capital projects. Despite the laudable programs of the agricultural transformation agenda and the zeal of its drivers, the absence of political will and poor funding hampered its implementation. For instance, between 2011 and 2014, statutory allocation to agriculture was on a steady decline. In 2013, the total allocation to agriculture was 83.37 billion naira from the nation's budget of 4.920 trillion naira, representing 1.7%. and far below the 6.2% of the total budgetary allocation the sector got in 2009. Also in 2014, the budget was cut by 20.06% from the 81.4 billion naira allocation in 2013 to 66.64 billion naira. The 2016 budget is also not a marked departure from this trend, with appropriation for agriculture representing a paltry 1.5% of the total budget. Varieties of highly nutritious rice in Abakaliki, Ofada, Kano. Yet Nigeria wastes billions on rice importation. Cocoa in the southwest, and yet top dollar is spent on imported chocolate and beverages. Fruits rot in Benue, Nasarawa, Kogi, yet imported juice line the shops. 82 million hectares of rich arable land, yet no jobs, and food insecurity threatens.
Our real wealth is in farming, livestock, hatcheries, fisheries, horticulture, and forestry.
It's time to act different. Time to bring Nigerian farmers to the market. Farmers Market, growing Nigeria's agro-economy. Showing every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. on AIT. One area in which Nigeria has a huge advantage over other countries in Africa is livestock production. The last census taken in 2011 shows that Nigeria's stock of cattle, goats, sheep, pigs, camel, chicken, ducks, turkey, and donkeys are larger than any other country on the continent. Nigeria is also the largest producer of livestock in West Africa, with 31.66% of the region's cattle, 43.3% of sheep, 51.98% of goats, 57.11% of pigs, and 99.38% of poultry. Despite this, animal products form a considerable part of Nigeria's food import burden. 145 million chickens, 11.6 million ducks, and 2.1 million turkeys. Yet, over 1.2 million tons of poultry products are smuggled in, costing the country about 399 billion naira in revenues annually. 19 million cattle, yet Nigeria expends $1.3 billion annually to import milk. The poor development of Nigeria's livestock production sector is already posing a major challenge to the country's food security. But even that is now being worsened by the violent clashes between cattle herders and crop farmers in different parts of the country. These clashes have become a recurring phenomenon. The Global Terrorism Index recently reported that over 1,200 people lost their lives in clashes between cattle herders and farmers across the country in 2014.
Why do we now realize that the herdsmen, in their moving around, have become a problem in their conflict with farmers? Because over the years, we never remembered that the herdsmen are also farmers, and we never did much for them. We've done enough for rice farmers, we've done something for wheat farmers, we're doing something for cassava farmers, for cocoa farmers. We never really did much for the herdsmen. I'm not by any means justifying the conflict, but we forgot to invest in that sector.
In recent times, the clashes have been frequent in many parts of northern Nigeria, especially the north-central states of Nasarawa and Benue. But the massacre of about 300 people in Benue State in February 2016 and the spread of the violence to Enugu State in April, when more than 40 people were killed, have caused a major outrage across the country, forcing the federal government and other stakeholders to seek permanent solutions to the herder-farmer clashes.
I think that the states and the federal government must come together to support the farmers and the herdsmen. And I'm happy with the policy of federal government now because of the vulnerable situation we have found ourselves. Criminality have come in. Today, cattle rustlers are a big problem to this country. Most times they come and rustle cattle in a particular place, and the herdsmen will come with their militia and attack the vulnerable and innocent people who are children and old men and women and kill them. That is what we have been witnessing here. Here, about 9 local governments are affected in Benue State out of the 23. In fact, in Kwande, there is a particular council ward that the entire people are deserted, the children are no longer going to school, there are no more hospitals, and the herdsmen have taken over these places. This is not fair.
The debate over the clashes between pastoralists and farmers has often taken an emotive and ethno-religious dimension, with little attention to the value of both the cattle herder and the farmers to Nigeria's food security, as well as our socio-economic development.
The federal government is the owner of the land. All the state government and any other person who has land is a mere custodian of that land. And all these grazing areas that we have, they are all located in the northern parts of the country. This is where the Fulani man belongs to. They have gone to the southern and southwestern part of the country in search of pasture. That is all. If you can develop their grazing areas in the north, they can come back and stay in the north. Simple. Provide grass, provide water, provide amenities in the grazing areas. They will come back and stay. Then later, we move on to ranching, because ranching, we must go to ranching as a matter of necessity. The population is increasing both ways. The population of animal and the population of human are all increasing against the static land that doesn't increase. So, as a matter of necessity, we must go to ranching, but not immediately.
The policy of grazing reserves in different parts of the country, especially in northern Nigeria, dates back to the colonial era. But it was only made official in 1964 through a government gazette, setting aside about 6.4 million hectares of the forest reserve, with 98% in the savannah. By 1980, only about 2.3 million hectares of this land had been surveyed, while most of the water and road projects to facilitate easy grazing were also abandoned. By this time also, agriculture had been relegated in favor of oil, and further development of the grazing policy stalled. In 1964, when the grazing reserve policy was made official, Nigeria's population was 49.17 million. Between 1980, when 2.3 million hectares was eventually surveyed for grazing, and 2013, the country's population had grown from 73.7 million to 173.6 million. The implication of this is that development as well as the growing population had taken over the reserves.
Today, because of human activities, farming, hospitals, schools, settlements, roads, and all that have increased in the country. And so it is a difficult thing for you to talk about grazing in the manner that is being done. I have advocated right from the inception that the way to resolve farmers and herdsmen conflict is about ranching. Globally, that is what is being practiced. If you go to Europe, America, and Asia, that is what I see being practiced, even on African soil. In Swaziland, their major export earning is beef. But they ranch their cattle. So why can't we do the same thing here? We must remember that we're no longer in the 50s. We're in 2016. A lot of things have changed. And so for us to resolve this matter, we must ranch our cattle.
The world is growing. The world is modernizing. So you have to move away from this culture of a thing. You have to also move with time, move with modernization. So they will have to accept it. We are going around to sensitize them to accept it. As a matter of sense, they must accept it. Look at all this trouble going on here and there. It is in nobody's interest that these clashes are going on. Even the cattle breeders are tired of it because they also die. They also lost a lot of their cattle, children and wives. So it's in nobody's interest that the crises are going on. So we must propose to settle together. We have been going around sensitizing them to accept the realities of modern day, because this is how the world moves.
Apart from this, the ongoing fight against insurgency and climate change are other factors which seem to be fueling the friction between cattle herders and farmers in the north, central and southern Nigeria. In the last 5 years, the killings and violence unleashed by the Boko Haram insurgents have caused nomadic herdsmen to abandon their foraging grounds in the northeast. Also, desertification in the far north has claimed grazing lands and caused extended drought, pushing the pastoralists southwards in search of green pasture.
We know that if we have set aside and properly structured and well-manned reserves, herdsmen will take maximum advantage of it, and it will be better for the subsector. The roaming about with cattle is not the best form of raising them, and it's not the best way of ensuring that you have healthy and more beneficial cattle. And I believe that with proper and more constructive engagement with herdsmen and herds owners, mark my statement, herdsmen and herds owners. Some of those herdsmen are merely cattle rearers who are looking after the cattle or the herds of some of us who are probably not even Fulanis, and in so many cases who are not Fulanis. So I believe that with the constructive engagement of the herdsmen and herds owners, they will get a better understanding of the policy on grazing reserve that has been promoted by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture.
The suggestions of grazing reserves remapping were greeted with vehement rejection, especially from state governments.
We are saying that you want to raise your cattle here, you must ranch them. That is the point. We want to live with our brothers who are herdsmen or cattle rearers, but they must understand that Benue State have no other industry other than farming and the civil service. So it is important that we know this. And these killings must stop because it does not solve any problem. And I'm happy with the policy of the federal government now to set up a squad to ensure that they go after cattle rustlers to protect herdsmen and also to protect farmers.
With some states expressing opposition to the proposal of redefining the country's grazing reserve policy, the federal government had no choice but to make it a voluntary venture. As at May 2016, 11 states had contributed 55,000 hectares of land for the purpose of establishing ranches for Nigeria's nomadic pastoralists.
We think that if we have the capacity to grass up those large areas, there may be no need for cattle to even roam from north to south. And that's what we're hoping to achieve. So, for northerners to go to the south and take their land and Islamize the south is out of the question. That is not the intention. And definitely as a ministry, that's not what we are here for. We're even encouraging southerners who want to keep cattle to come and join us, and we can help them develop their own ranches so they too can keep cows and feed them well. But definitely the intention from this ministry is not to seize land from anybody, except where the governors have said, fine, we have the land and we can allow you develop paddocks so that herdsmen can come and operate under certain strict regulations. Our climate is very good. If we can irrigate, we can almost bale grass every 2 months and develop hay and store for the dry season. We intend to establish large hectareages of paddocks or grazing fields with highly improved tropical grasses and legumes. You can see the picture over there of different types of grasses, samples of which we already have. and the planting of which we hope to begin during this rainy season. We intend to provide irrigation for all year-round commercial fodder production to enhance the settlement of pastoralists. And we intend to spread the production of fodder across the length and breadth of Nigeria, north, south, east, or west, because fodder production is good business. The cattle and sheep and goat improvement through expanded breeding programs that will also aggressively address the issue of quality and quantity in livestock production using artificial insemination. We shall pursue the establishment of clusters of dairy farmers which would be equipped with milk collection facilities, schools for children of the herdsmen, markets for their products, and one new dimension we intend to pursue: to discuss with the Minister of Internal Affairs and train special units of the civil defense to protect large ranches against rustlers.
The new National Agricultural Roadmap, the Green Alternative, recently endorsed by the Federal Executive Council, recognizes that the country's cattle value chain has become a major security problem. It describes the current supply chain as inefficient and a high security risk because the roaming cattle are a source of friction between landowners and herdsmen. The Green Alternative aims to protect all parties by retaining cattle in ranches. You can see this program again whenever you want to. Just visit our website www.farmersmarketng.com. For feedback and sponsorship considerations, please contact us on 009 566 0090. Email us on info@farmersmarketng.com. Follow us on Twitter @farmersmarketng and like our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/farmersmarketng. Farmers Market returns same time, same station next week. Thanks for watching.